Now what, I say, what's the big idea bashing me on the noggin with a rolling pin? Clunk enough people and we'll have a nation of lumpheads.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to the 523 Happy Hour, episode 56, Survivor White House. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the crazy people. You know who I'm talking about. The guy in the White House? The one who's hanging on by a thread? Anyway, if you were listening to yesterday's emergency declaration or whatever the hell it was, it became quite apparent that our reality show president is quickly losing it, and he's not like really. Well, it's been one of those things where we have known for a long time that he's not really all there, and it's just becoming more and more apparent. Now, I have to say that before I get into this sort of thing, and I'll be hemming and hawing a lot because I'm flying by the seat of my panties. And what I mean by that is that earlier this week I had a lovely interview chat with singer-songwriter Melissa D. And true to being, and this was a do-over because I had actually managed to screw up my end of the chat the first time through, and so I told her that, and we scheduled a do-over, and lo and behold, had a lovely chat once again, lovelier than the first one, and once again, I actually managed to screw up the audio on my end. Now this is a 1 hour chat. That's without putting in the two of the songs she recorded. They're really nice. You need to go check out madeinvermont.com or Melissa D, or madeinvermont.com, and check her out. She's really good, and I'll be finishing up. She'll be airing next week. My apologies, Melissa. Blame me. It's my fault. And what happened is that the application that I used to record through Skype, it was my end. I went to go make all the changes in Skype, and I forgot to actually switch over from my mixer, which I wasn't using for this particular interview, to my Samson Meteor mic, my USB mic, and we're happily chatting away, and she's coming across really good, and it's recording well, and we finish up. I shut her down, go in to edit it the next day, and there's no sound on my end. And I really can't I really couldn't have asked Melissa to do a third time, because then she would have thought, quite rightly, that I'm an idiot. And so, it's being fixed, but it's taking a very long time, because what I had to do, is really boost up the recording to where I could hear myself. And what that meant was making my guest's voice in the recording so loud it clipped. So I have been going in comment by comment, turning the volume up, turning up the volume on my commentary, inserting silence in hers on her end. And this takes time because I have to search and then make sure that it's my voice, increase the gain on it, so silence her voice. Now I have the original track is sitting in Logic, and when I get this done, all I will need to do is put the two together, make sure they're synced properly, which is easy enough to do. And once that's done, I can bounce that, which means I will be turning that into one file, bringing that single file back into Logic, editing the two songs into that chat with some other minor edits and tweaking, and then voila, I have achieved podcast. So that is my plan for next week. It will take me another few days to finish the just getting my voice loud enough that you can hear it. I'm such a dope. I actually went to audio engineering school to learn how to do this shit. And we can see how much I actually learned. But again, it was a really good, lovely chat with Melissa. She's awesome. You need to support her. In fact, in penance of what I done, I am going to open her up. See if I can find her. Go to music, and we go to there we are. I'm just going to play one of her songs. It's called End of the Day. And I think you'll agree it's really a lovely song. So this is Melissa D. and End of the Day.
He's getting his coat. It's been a long day. Curses at the computer, it didn't shut down the right way. He's got dinner waiting for him at home. His wife just called on the cell phone, and I turned to him and said, it's the end of the day. It's the end of the day. I'm tired to the bone and I don't have much to say. It's the end of the day. He plays a guitar, nostalgic look in his eye. The song he's playing makes him think about years gone by. He longs for the times back in the city, living it up with the love of his life when they were young and giddy. And he turns to me and says, it's the end of the day. It's the end of the day. I'm tired to the bone and I don't have much to say. It's the end of the day. So no one ever told me that it'd be this way. Feeling so much older, need to break away. Walk through the door with the unopened mail. Dog is swirling around me, wagging her tail. I pour myself a great big glass of wine. Think about the fleeting days and the divine. And I turn to God and say, yeah, It's the end of the day. It's the end of the day. I'm tired to the bone and I don't have much to say. It's the end of the day. It's the end of the day. It's the end of the day. Ooh, ooh, ooh. He's getting his coat. It's been a long day.
And that was Melissa D. End of the day. And again, that chat will come up next week. And now, I am disjointed. I am a magpie. My attention goes to shiny things. Donald Trump, on the other hand, I don't know about him. I don't see. Being attention deficit myself, I know that when something grabs my attention, I can hold on to it. It's that shiny object that just keeps your attention. I have yet to see that, so I don't think the man is attention deficit. He's definitely not hyperactive. I just think he's really, really incurious. Probably I don't know. Well, I will say he's in what I could bear to listen to, because I have a really difficult time just dealing with the sound of his voice or the cadence how he speaks. He speaks flat, not emotionally, unless he is speaking about something that is creepy. And the man's a walking creep show as far as I'm concerned. And it was, I've got all 29 pages of his remarks in the Rose Garden yesterday. And it's and actually the Washington Post annotated. Well, he says it's in yellow, so I don't know if I can find the damn yellow annotations here. But I'm going to go with Rachel Maddow on this and say, yeah, some emergency. He went off and played as soon as the presser in the Rose Garden was done. He left to go play golf. Some emergency. If it had been a real, true emergency, he would have stayed at the White House. But this only, to me, leads into heavens forbid there is an actual major emergency. How would he behave? He wouldn't know what to do. He'd be a quivering mass of jelly. He would not know what to do. And I'm saying that because he just can't cope with actually taking responsibility and handling major situations. And while for him at least a major event would be a unifying thing for him, on the other hand, it would be the worst thing that could ever happen to him, because he's gutting he's taken money from the Department of Defense from projects he thinks aren't that important anyway, without saying what they are, which, gutted he's just gutting everything that will keep us safe. And again, it's just difficult to talk about this man. It really is difficult. I loathe him. As an actor, that is a character that nobody, in order to play a villain, the bad guy. The actor has to find something likable within that character. Even if you're not playing the villain, there has to be, and you just don't like the way the character is drawn, because we as human beings tend to not be nice. Niceness kind of has to be socialized into us. And as a character, there is nothing redeeming about Donald Trump. You could take the most hateful theatrical character around, and you would still find something to like about him. You can despise and loathe Lady Macbeth, but at least there's an understandable what her motives are. Yeah, she's doing it all, allegedly, for her husband, to bring a prophecy to fruition, except, the prophecy about her husband becoming King of Scotland ends when Birnam Wood comes to him. And we all know what happened at that point. The character that is in the White House, that is playing Survivor White House, right? It's outlast, but it's not outsmart. And it's not even outmaneuver. He still thinks he's good looking and he can get away with shit on the basis of his looks. Sorry, baby. You're not all that. You're just a cheap thug in a cheap suit. And when you listen to the Ningun, he was chanting about the lawsuits and all of that. It was just like he was trying to entrance people, like knowing that his normal lines are no longer working. His normal patterns are no longer working. So he has to come up with new stuff. He's been calling out people. Oh no, Ann Coulter called him out. When I was setting this up, I was actually, where is it? I was thinking when I came up with the idea that this was Survivor White House. I was going through all my old notes and stuff, and I actually do have notes. I really have notes. Not so much that I stick with them, but I do have notes. In fact, I mind map my notes because it helps keep this poor nonlinear brain kind of semi-focused. Keeps my attention span. And so, when I was coming up with the concept of Survivor White House, I came up with a couple of mind maps, outlines, notes, whatever you want to call them. And initially, what I wrote down was, and this is a truism when you play the bad guy, you have to know, you have to be capable of insight. Because the best villains, the best bad guys, this is what makes supervillains so fun. And the character, like from Silence of the Lambs, fun, and they're super smart. They understand their nemesis in this, using this in the proper term of the restorative justice, the person who will bring them down. When you use the word nemesis in relationship to a villain, you're totally pissing her off. Did you know? And oh yeah, by the way, nemesis is female. Justice is female. And maybe that's why the ship bullshitter in chief has such a hate on for smart women. Because it's, who is going to be the okay. In the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, and very rarely do we hear about these women, is there's three that we never hear about. Deborah, who was a judge, who was told that there would be a great victory, but she would not be the one, who selected her general, whose name was Barak. There is Yael and Yehudith, two women who defeated an enemy by killing the army's general. But we never hear about them. These are smart, cunning women. And so I think that one could say that Nancy Pelosi is filling two biblical roles. She's Deborah the judge, and she is also Yehudith. Yael. Well, let's go with Deborah. And Chuck Schumer, maybe even Robert Mueller, is her Barak, the general, the Judean general who will defeat the enemy. I'm going to go here and let me go see if I can find Deborah in my Bible. Song of Deborah, Jeremiah, Habakkuk. Let me see if I can find her in the book, and we can get a little bit more information on Deborah. And the Song of Deborah, actually. She's probably in Judges. May you be like Ruth and like Esther. 377. You are now hearing me troll through my Old Testament for you non-Jewish people. They're Tanakh for you Jewish people. Joshua at the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. I'm not finding it there, so let's see. I'm going to leave you with another song right now. This one is something I composed called How to Tame Your Egregore. I'm doing this because I need to go and actually go up online to find what I'm looking for. I found it. Hey, found it. Found what I was looking for. It's always nice and easy and quick. And you're listening to the 523 Happy Hour here on netrootsradio.com. And if you like what you're hearing, please support me on Patreon. Please. I'm begging you. No, I'm not. I don't beg. Now, Deborah was a prophetess, a judge. See, there were women women were prophets. And starts in Judges 4. And at this point, we were a bad bunch of people. So once again, we were punished by being overrun and we were like being harassed and oppressed for 20 years. And along comes Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, who was a prophetess. She led Israel at that time. See, women in ancient Israel were leaders. So Nancy Pelosi is our Deborah. She used to sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel and the hill. It goes on and on and on and on to talk about. And so she calls to Barak. Seriously, Barak. And it's even spelled B-A-R-A-K. So, POTUS 44. His name is Hebrew, Barak. And so I know I'm getting off on a lot of tangents here, but this is a need to remember. Well, I don't know if you need to remember. Where are we going here? Where do I go? I'm just babbling. I'm right. This is my impression, actually, of Donald Trump right now. So unfocused. Anyway, going back, while I was working on my outline, what came to me is that your enemies always know you better than you know yourself. Always, always, always. And truly, the more narcissistic you are, self-centered you are, the less you know about yourself. This is why Thwimp gets played all the time. He's being played by everybody. And he doesn't see it because everything comes out to his advantage. He doesn't understand that he thinks by raising tariffs, he is punishing China. No, he's punishing Americans. Because companies that manufacture in China have to raise their prices because of the tariffs. And because of demand, we have been trained to want, to never be satisfied, to always to be a consumer society. And this starts in childhood. I was watching Mr. Rogers, Won't You Be My Neighbor, a really lovely, lovely documentary about Mr. Rogers. And that was one of the things he abhorred was how training young children, training people at an early age in childhood to be consumers. He was also rather horrified over, marketing of toy guns to children. And if you can see that documentary, it was originally aired on PBS, and I caught it Thursday night actually, on HBO. So thank you, Spectrum, for making it less expensive for me to upgrade my movie the package than keep the Time Warner legacy. Much cheaper. So we have this shaped. We're living in a shaped reality. The only idea is that whose reality how do we want to shape that reality? We have the ability to make that decision to say, enough of this. It's not, and a shaped reality is a consensus reality. And right now, it's not Vladimir Putin who is trying to shape our reality to create the society, this dystopic, nasty society, dark society. It's actually Fox News. Because he's listening to them more than he listens to anybody else. So, Survivor White House is being written, character arced, by Ann Coulter, the dweebs at Fox and Friends, Rush Limbaugh, Jeanine Pirro. Sean Hannity is showrunner. He's the executive producer. He's the showrunner, running this shaped reality. And it's set in the White House in Washington, D.C. And so we have the contestant, Donald Thwimp, trying to see if he can survive 4 years, or whether he will be voted out of the House. I mean, everybody looks at this as Celebrity Apprentice, and they're counting down all the people who leave, but they're looking at the wrong people. Because at least on The Apprentice, Celebrity Apprentice, we know that it was edited because they wanted a specific arc to happen. And if you do your research, you will see that people who performed the best were not necessarily the ones who were kept. Just do your research. And part of this reality, this reality show that we are now in, it has to do with rumor mongering and people believing everything they read on the internet, and the possibility that Russia is involved in the anti-vaccination the anti-vax movement, which is now being helped along by the wife of a White House staffer who thinks that childhood diseases should come back. Oh, sure, let's bring back polio, kids in iron lungs, adults in iron lungs. I'm a baby boomer. I had the mumps, I had the measles, I had the chicken pox. Still got some scars from the chicken pox. And I've talked about this before. I wouldn't wish this on these illnesses on anybody. There is nothing more uncomfortable than having your body covered with little lumps and bumps, and they itch, and you're running a fever, and you just can't. You just can't. And then you have the selfishness, the pure, unadulterated selfishness of the parents of the children who go unvaccinated, not caring about the fact that there are people in society who, for one reason or another, cannot be vaccinated. When the HIV/AIDS epidemic started up, everybody in America was terrified of coming in contact with somebody with AIDS, when in truth they were more at risk from me than I was from them, just because I had a healthy immune system. I had a strong immune system. If I got sick and went out in public, I could infect and kill somebody because they don't have one. There are people who have illnesses that compromise their immune system. There are children who can't. There's a very wonderful movie called The Boy in the Bubble, and it's about a young man whose immune system is compromised, and the only way he can go out really is in a bubble. He has to be completely sealed off from people around him because he will get sick and die. And I believe that subjecting a child to the natural thing of measles is child abuse. I honestly believe it. And I'm speaking and I can say that because I've had them. I've had these illnesses. If you're my age, and I'm like in my 60s, I'm going to be 64 next month, then, damn it, you've probably had those we were on a vacation, and I had been exposed to mumps and didn't know it until my family and we were driving up to Lake Tahoe for a weekend. Because that's what we did. We went up to Tahoe for a weekend. My parents dropped my brother and I into the Harrah's children's place, and they went off, and my mom played cards or slots or whatever. And I mumped out on the trip up. My cheeks blew up. I looked like a chipmunk. I think my brother had already had them, so he was good to go. But I was sicker than and we were like halfway to Lake Tahoe when it blew up on me. I was stuck in the motel room because I wasn't going to go around infecting people in the children's area. It wasn't fun when you're running a fever, and it's just not fun when you're a kid and you're sick. It's just not. And I don't know what else to say about that. That's all there is to say about that. And there's so much other things to say, to do. Sitting around all day, going back to my wonderful logic project. The audacity of me having to pull it into a secondary application because I forgot how to be able to do the amplification of my end in a batch because I'm that dumb. So I'm doing it. And by the time I still have around 35 minutes, 30 minutes left to fix. Because it's if you're into the recording arts and you're recording something and somebody says, "Well, fix it in post," hit them over the head, because I'm trying to fix something in post. It's fixable. I'm not going to have any background noise on this thing. But I should have been slapped upside the head. I should have had my fucking headphones on and I would have noticed it. And that's all I'm going to say. Well, I'm probably going to go back and say some more about it. So, we're pitching a shaped reality show here called Survivor White House, and the pitch is can a thoroughly incompetent and curious failure of a real estate developer not do unto the United States what he did to every business he ever touched? And the answer is no. So somebody vote him out. There have been enough people listening to his speech that are so actually rightfully concerned about his mental health. As I said, when he came out, into the rose garden, he looked thoroughly defeated, broken, really, really unhealthy. Now, I'm overweight. You could say that my height is that I'm obese, but at least I like wearing clothes that fit. And when, wearing a suit that's ill-fitting is not a good sign, and he's always worn ill-fitting suits. So I don't know what's going on with that. And I don't begrudge him his golf in the White House. But you would think that because Barack Obama played golf that he would not want to play it anymore. You think? You think? Maybe you should listen to this pod late at night because it just might put you to sleep. Because I'm all over the place tonight. Been looking at the genealogy, my family tree. And what makes doing genealogy to me for me, a bittersweet experience is that a great deal of my father's family was wiped out during the Second World War. When I go through the tree and I see 1942, 1942, and it just scrolls on and on and on and on, knowing that these are cousins I would never know, second cousins I would never know, because of an insanity that 45 is attempting to unleash here. Fox Television refused to air an ad for a short called A Night at the Garden, and it was made in 1939, I believe. And the Bund, the American Bund, held a fifth column Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden. And Fox said, no, we can't air it. It's too disturbing for our viewers. Now Spectrum had also bought time on this, since it was Spectrum ran it on their own on their network. And if you go to archive.org, you can see the archival footage of that rally. And I remember after seeing on Turner Movie Classics, the original Jack Benny, To Be or Not to Be, they ran a 30-minute documentary about Nazism, fascism in America in the 30s. In the 40s, 50s, Truman was still president. And that, and I was doing something else, so I came in the middle of it, so I can't even tell you what the name of that 30-minute documentary title is. And it talked about the haters, including the haters in the Congress. And knowing that they're still there, that there are those who just hate And after a while, it's not just fear. Jealousy? That they haven't socioeconomic. I can't really go for the most part with the with economic anxiety, because there's a lot of extremely wealthy people who are out and out Nazis, haters. Then there are the ones that are cynical about it and egg the trash, as they would call them. Ones that aren't fit to shine my shoes. And they promote this divide because for the landowners, they need that divide. Why do you think after the Nat Turner Rebellion they decided to make the unlanded, non-enslaved white? Because it was a layer of protection. It was a buffer. It was the cannon fodder for them. If we can make the farmhands white, we'll be safer. Because they're going to look down, because they're going to suddenly, overnight, they're going to become too good, better than they. Then in the 19th century, they did the same thing with the Irish. If you go and take a look at illustrations or caricatures of the Irish, they're portrayed as apes. Eugene O'Neill wrote a play titled The Hairy Ape, and it's about a stoker on a ship, a hairy Irishman. And then in the early part of the 20th century, the landowners, the robber barons, the titans of industry, the government made the decision that Germans and Italians would become white. And again, you split poor Americans of European descent away from Americans whose ancestors were slaves. Gotta keep them people divided for our own safety. And then in 1979, or thereabouts, when Jews and African Americans, Black Americans, American descendants of slavery, I believe that is what ADOS stands for, were coming together, we were suddenly made white. Now, the government says, oh, it's for your protection. Being designated white never protected me from Jew hate. Never protected me from good Christian boys from spitting on me, beating me up, saying Hitler had the right idea, telling me that we reduced property values, didn't protect our home from being vandalized with swastikas in liberal California, doesn't protect me still from being called a deicide, a Christ killer. That white designation doesn't protect me at all. Does it protect you? Does it really? I don't call it white privilege, I call it Christian privilege, and I'll tell you why. Christians are a majority, and yet they cry persecution. They're so persecuted. I'm doing a little Christian bashing. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop. I guess that's all I really have to say tonight. Stay tuned for Katie Speaks with Katie Klobusish here on netrootsradio.com. Tune in later tonight for a more lighthearted live show with me and my partner in crime, Ricky, for the Roundhouse Power Hour, where we will be talking more about more pleasant things and every day. Listen in on two chicks just talking about more than nothing. Have a good Saturday evening, everybody. Hope your Valentine's Day was good. Always keep the children who have been murdered by firearms in your hearts. And contact both your state representatives and your congressmen, congressmen, that's representatives and senators, regarding, and your state and the folks you voted for to represent you within your state, your representatives in your state governments, to eschew the NRA and their blood money and support background checks, universal background checks. I have friends who have died from gunfire, who were murdered in San Bernardino. I have friends that have been shot accidentally, but they still got shot because dumbass was playing with a gun and shot my friend. When I lived in Newark, New Jersey, I walked out of my apartment one day with a friend of mine. We actually walked back into the building, and there was like blood on the wall next to one of the next to the ground floor apartment. Or it was there when we left. It was the woman who lived in that apartment with her children was murdered by her husband's girlfriend. Hubby got away. Hubby got freed of both ladies and the children because the girlfriend was pregnant. And the blood on the wall and how long it stayed there is still with me. And and still disturbs me. I support the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. But God damn it, if you want to carry a firearm, join the fucking National Guard. If you're so terrified of the world that you feel a need to carry a firearm with you everywhere you go, just stay the fuck home and don't endanger anybody else. And on that note, again, stay tuned for Katie Speaks with Katie Klobusish here on netrootsradio.com.